Hello, my name's Amanda. Welcome to my channel. And today I want to talk about anxiety and fear on the hero's journey, on the path of spiritual awakening. So I see anxiety and fear as a double-edged sword. It can be very debilitating, as we all know, and it can also be our greatest edge. And after having a near-death experience in 2017, I I had anxiety, fear, hesitation, terror, all of these things amplify in a way that I never had previously. So you would think that having a near death experience would bring so much light and so much love and just like all these great things, which it does in many ways, but it also shines a light on the parts that are really not evolving because the light of God wants us to evolve and change and transform and be in alignment with courage. And so if there's parts of us that are not yet in that place, then in spiritual awakening, that light will shine and kind of amplify anything that needs to be restructured and restored. And for many of us, anxiety, fear, terror, and hesitation is something that is holding us back more than it needs to. So, of course, there's a place for that. Fear and anxiety are like a warning system to make sure that we don't do something stupid or walk off a cliff. But in the Western world, for sure, we are often dealing with it way, way more than is necessary. It's just part of the initiation of these times. It's very rare to talk to someone who never experiences any fear or anxiety. And, I would really question if a person is never feeling the fear and anxiety, maybe they're not pushing themselves hard enough. Like maybe they've been in the same routine, doing the same thing with the same people for their whole life, problem solving the same way. That's one way that some people don't have fear and anxiety. But if you're on a path of evolution, you probably should be feeling this. And we pathologize it, we medicate it, we go into addictions and distractions so that we don't have to feel it and so that we can feel the same. It's like being in a cocoon and not wanting to get out of the cocoon, and nature is coming at us in all directions to break open that cocoon and call us out. And we're like, no, I'm more comfortable. I'm going to stay in here. I don't want to change. And I'll take any kind of medication or addiction to make myself feel more comfortable about being in a cocoon and not evolving. So if you are done with that, but you're still experiencing a high degree of hesitation and terror in many areas, you're probably in a great place, because that means that your soul is calling you to change in some way. A lot of the important changes go on the inside. Like we can talk about doing something really scary, like getting on a stage and speaking in front of lots of people, or whatever your worst fears in the outside world. Those are important to embrace. And just as important to embrace and feel and kind of move through are the inner things. Like I'm just thinking, how many times have I had like an old attitude where it's like I see a certain type of person or a situation the way I've always seen it, in maybe coming from like a place of judgment, or being a victim, or feeling sorry for myself, or giving a bunch of excuses of why something won't work. And that's kind of like my old person, my old go-to attitude. I'm comfortable with that. There's tons of denial and excuse making, and I can kind of like justify not changing. And then when we do our spiritual awakening work, when that light keeps shining on all these parts of us, we just see how foolish that is, to be in an old way of being that is not life-giving to the entire system, to ourselves and other people. And we start to feel really uncomfortable doing those old attitudes, those old structures. Like being a victim stops feeling good. Feeling sorry for ourselves, people pleasing, running away from our problems starts to feel really, really horrible the more sensitive we get and the more the light's coming in. We don't want to do that. But we also haven't developed this muscle of courage. And we might not know how to be in new situations. We might not know how to show up with people that are very different from us. We might feel insecure, not because there's something wrong with us or we have really bad self-esteem, but because we just don't know how to be without this ability to use these muscles that aren't developed yet. And that's a great place to be, because that means that we're in a place where that light is shining. We're starting to notice places in our attitudes and in our perception, in our just general way of being that are just from the past. There's nothing wrong with them. That's how we were taught to be. That's how we coped before. But now it's like, let's step out of the cocoon in one way or another into the new. And it should be scary. That's the thing. It should be scary. Now, it doesn't mean we need to be rattled and triggered all of the time. I believe that we need to have an indestructible foundation. So for everyone, that's going to mean something different, but being really grounded in the ways that your inner child wants to feel safe and grounded, taking care of your body and really only surrounding yourself with people who support you, even if you're different than they are. These kind of supports are an indestructible foundation so that you can move forward. If you don't have those kind of basics in place, it can be really chaotic and unnecessarily terrorizing. So make sure you have an indestructible foundation. You're always going back to it, whatever that means to you. And then accepting that the anxiety and the terror and the hesitation are actually not a sign of illness. They're not a sign of weakness. They're not indicating that there's something wrong with you. They're indicating that you are on this faster, more intense momentum than maybe you were in the past. And the system that you have, your ego, personality, human part is not used to so much rapid change inside and outside, or both. And so I would say congratulations. You're starting to feel the evolution in a way that is scary to the old part of you. So once you're like, okay, actually, this is not an illness. This is not something that's wrong with me. This is just evidence that a lot needs to change. A lot is changing. We can start to see that the fear and the terror are actually often, if we can, ground ourselves and look at it with curiosity, that fear and terror could be alerting us to possibility. It could be alerting us to possibility. Having a near-death experience, part of the aftermath was the acknowledgement that I had obviously been living my own life very much according to society, the community and family values around me. My life didn't look too different than anyone else's. There's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted more. After my near-death experience, I realized there are things that I hadn't experienced, things that I hadn't learned, things I hadn't said. And if I had died in that car accident on the road, they would have remained unlearned, unexperienced, and unsaid. And often when we're just living our grind, kind of working hard, doing the same thing as our peers, we don't think that we really have permission to be different and to follow our dreams and to stand out from the crowd. And you actually do. I used to think, okay, some of these things that interest me, maybe I'll pursue when I have enough money, when I'm older, maybe when I'm retired. There's always going to be a perfect time in the future, but there really isn't. So what kind of things are causing you anxiety that might be indicating a possibility that you're being pushed in a certain direction? And sometimes just making a statement or making a decision is the best way to actually alleviate the anxiety. When we have an undivided heart, there's so much less worry. We often don't know which decision is the right one to make, but it's better to make a decision than to be on the fence. Our inner child really, really doesn't like being parented by an adult who can't make a decision, who is very indecisive. That's not a safe feeling for the inner child. The inner child wants a decision to be made and wants to feel secure that that adult trusts the universe, trusts God, that everything is going to work out the way that it should, by taking the courage to make a decision. Sometimes we need to have a conversation. We need to send a message. We need to make a commitment of some sort, even if we don't know how it's going to turn out, we know that that's something we've been procrastinating. And so by doing it, maybe even writing down, some of us just need to make a list of a couple of things that we have procrastinated deciding or doing. And once it's kind of like out on paper or spoken to someone else, that gets the ball rolling and the anxiety goes down a little bit. So, if we don't experience these hesitations, we might not be someone who's really pushing ourselves out of the comfort zone. So just take these hesitations as an indication that things are actually moving, and it's just the parts of us that are frightened that need to get caught up. That need to get caught up. So whatever those parts of you need in order to get caught up and make those decisions and make a move, that would be definitely worth putting some time and energy in. There's plenty of room. I mean, we need to be doing things like slowing our breathing and, grounding ourselves, meditating. All of these things are part of the indestructible foundation. But when we're using those things only just to calm us down and stay the same, they won't work forever. There are people who spend a lot of time doing their calming exercises, but they don't make any changes in their life, and they wonder why the anxiety just keeps coming back. And it's because they're not actually listening to the message. So, understand that where the place is for the grounding and calming exercises, that's part of your foundation, but that's not supposed to replace stepping into and feeling your greatest fears. And when we step in and we decide to go all in, are you going to go all into this decision? Are you going to go all into this new venture? When you do that and you stand in the middle of the storm actually is kind of like a gift. It's not an enemy. It's a gift, and it blows the wind and it blows the rain, and it does its best if we can just let go and surrender and allow it to remove the old parts of us. Because, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, you weren't ready to make this decision. You weren't ready to change this inner attitude. You needed to still be a victim and people please. And you needed to hide from the world or be really defensive all the time to other people. That was serving you before. But when we stand in the eye of the storm, facing these fears of changing those parts of ourselves and saying, that was perfect back then. It's not perfect now. It's getting actually really annoying and uncomfortable. And I've got anxiety because I realize it's no longer working for me. Stand in the storm. Feel, the full 100% nervous system activation while the storm comes around and tries to blow around and restructure your energy body, restructure your attitudes. Yeah, it could be definitely saying yes to, a big decision or a new opportunity or something that's really frightening, like a new job. But I would say that it's equally important to be really addressing these changes, these inner changes with our inner attitudes, because that's where it all starts. It all starts on the inside. So inside changes, outside changes, inside changes, outside changes. But the same approach to being grateful for the anxiety, seeing it as an indicator, stepping into feeling it fully, all of the sensations in the body, and not rejecting or resisting them, and allowing the storm that's stirring all of this up, because we don't like to let go. And our attachments to our attitudes and our coping mechanisms are so tight, and that's what the storm is for. And that's all, a lot of the time, the discomfort that we're feeling with the anxiety during spiritual awakening, because we're now on this evolution trajectory, whereas before we weren't. We were just kind of in our comfort zone and nothing was disturbing that. But now things have changed, and they're probably not going to go back to the way that they were. So we've got to step up. We've got to step up and step into and go with, the spirit of the wind when it comes. And that spirit of the wind will often cause discomfort, anxiety, and terror over and over and over. It doesn't get easier. The intensity always comes to wake us up and is always uncomfortable. But what does get easier is knowing the routine. Okay, this happens. I feel terror and anxiety. There's a part of me that doesn't want to change and wants to have an old coping mechanism, but the wind of spirit and light is trying to blow and break these structures off. So I've got to go through the process of the wind blowing and restructuring, no matter how uncomfortable, then make a decision use my voice, write something down, make a phone call, and start the ball rolling on, what I'm being kind of pressed to do and change. And that is the routine. And we do it over and over and over. And at some point we look back and we're like, whoa, what happened? I'm not even recognizable. My life 5 or 10 years ago compared to my life now is unrecognizable. Like, how on earth did that happen? It happened because we say yes to this process over and over. And we just have to accept that fear and anxiety and hesitation is usually part of it. I mean, that's just the way it is. We develop courage, but our voice still shakes while we choose courage. We balance our shaking voice and our tremoring body with putting one foot in front of the other. That is the path. And if you're beating yourself up or judging yourself for feeling like that or experiencing that, then that's just the mind. It's totally untrue. This is how this works. This is what everyone's doing. So if that's you, then you're actually in the right place, and your anxiety and your fear just might need a little bit tending, a little bit of understanding, a little bit of curiosity, because probably they're pointing to some kind of, indicating some kind of thing, like you found something is here. And so go all in. Whatever it is that's in front of you, we're all at a crossroads at any given time. So whatever venture is in front of you in the inner world or the outer world, go all in. And that's going to cause you a lot more peace than being on the fence, than being on this constant tipping point that's just causing you so much grief. So yeah, go all into whatever that new venture is on the inside or outside. And even if you fail, even if things don't turn out the way that you think, in the long run, a few years down the road, when you look back, it will have been perfect that you made that decision and went all in. So yeah, journey well at the crossroads. Thank you for being here. And yeah, journey well.